There are certain aspects of learning that may be intellectual or factual, so that when you learn it one time, you know it, and then there are other things like repertoire that are worked on continuously, but that change over time, and it's sort of a different animal. But there are certain aspects of technique that, for me, are like, I liken it to brushing your teeth. That you can't say to somebody like, "Did you brush your teeth?" "Oh yeah, I did it yesterday." It's something that has to be continuously done and continuously maintained. And especially for bass players, one of our fundamental issues, and one that's really only present in really more advanced players, is having a really clear sound and clear articulation. So being able to master that in all parts of the bow is something that I would say goes on that daily diet of teeth brushing etudes, if you will. And so the only thing that I like to do with it is starting with a kind of stroke where you're really feeling the articulation before you start the stroke, and then releasing the string. So there's that sort of feel to the stroke, and doing it twice in each direction on the bow. So you could either do that 4 times on one note. It could be moving through the scale on 2 each. It could be 1 each. Any of those are appropriate. But then working that through all the subdivisions at a particular tempo, so that you would do so you get quarter note triplets or eighth notes. Again, doing that combination, or working that all the way through. Something along those lines, so that you really feel like you have complete mastery over being able to play here, playing there with the same kind of articulation. A lot of times there's sort of a feeling of playing generic up bows and down bows. I noticed that with some students, that they'll have a particular stroke or a technique, and then they just try to blanketly apply it to an excerpt. Like one example for me would be Beethoven 5, one of our big standard excerpts. And there are 2 strokes in that. There's the eighth note stroke, and then there's the stroke on the quarter notes. And a lot of times the best example I can think of what people do is they do it basically like mixing salad dressing. Like they think, okay, I'm going to learn to do this eighth note stroke starting from slow and working it up till I have, okay, I have the stroke now. Now I'm going to put it on my salad, and they just pour it on and expect that this is going to purposely be horrible. They're going to play, and it's somehow going to come out. And I say, if you want to keep the salad analogy, you have to put that in a bowl and a paintbrush and paint each leaf with that same stroke, so that you learn this stroke. But then you have a couple options. You could triple up on each note so that the left hand moves slower. So you can keep the stroke basically at the same rate, but slow the left hand down. Or you can slow the stroke down, which is a lot more challenging if you haven't already learned the stroke. So this is maybe for later in the process, but so you're really making sure that you're connecting with each and every note, and you don't take anything for granted. Going back to that construction analogy, if you've ever seen a skyscraper being built, and when they're installing like the outside panels on a window on each floor, the way a lot of people practice would be akin to installing one of those windows and then going, yeah, and it pretty much goes like that for 50 floors. I mean, you have to install every single window, every single weather stripping, everything on every floor ad nauseum in repetition to the top. And again, you're the laborer, you're the contractor, you're the architect, you're everything. And so just because you have the stroke, you might at an advanced level just have an issue with that part of it, so that you have to focus on integrating the coordination just between that one part. So you never take there's no note that's ever taken for granted in that way. And then in this excerpt, you would continue on with the quarter note stroke, and it'd be the same thing. And part of the reason for that exercise would be that when you play and you finish that note, the next note isn't here, it's here, which is a differential of about that much in the bow for the string crossing. And that requires something slightly different from your body and from your bow technique. And so having that sort of regular exposure to that with that kind of etude would help facilitate this kind of excerpt. So that's just one of innumerable possible techniques could be plugged in that way. But the one thing I would say is if you do them for very short amounts of time on a regular basis, you'll get more benefit than, say, working on articulation for 45 minutes a day. I would say that's like a 5 to 7 minute kind of excerpt, and then, I mean, not the excerpt, excuse me, the etude. And then you could have a whole string of those that are focusing on certain areas and aspects of your technique that you're trying to improve.